13. Impressive. It's 14. Behold, a 3.
The time is 10:30 a.m.
The time is really live from New York. It's Ask an Engineer.
Hey everybody, welcome to Ask Engineer, the most fun you can have other than playing Dungeons and Dragons with clear dice or making your own talking clock.
Yeah.
It's Ask Engineer. We're going to be talking about electronics, new products, 3D printing, videos, open source hardware. It's not out yet.
It's one of our biggest shows ever.
This is a jam-packed show.
Yeah.
So we're going to get right into it. Mr. Ladyada, what's the code?
Okay, the code is Metro NXP. The reason is we're going to debut this. This is a really cool board. 10% off the Adafruit store all the way up to midnight. Use it or lose it. Talk about some of our live shows. Show and Tell just happened. Thank you, Liz, for hosting. Do a little bit of recap of Desk of Ladyada, including the great search, and play a video from JP's product pick of the week. A little reminder of some things that we do every single week during our time travel segment. We have a very special video mailbag. Someone who makes electronics shared a video. We're going to play it. Retro Tech, we have a cool, weird, clacky keyboard that happens to be in the Smithsonian. And we have one too. Some Made in New York City factory footage right here in New York. We got some 3D printing. We're going to do Ion MPI. That's brought to you by DigiKey. This week it's TE. And a lot of top secret. A lot of new products. We'll answer your questions. We do that over on Discord, adafruit.it/Discord, where we answer all of your questions and more. We'll get to all of them either throughout the show or at the end. Let's dive right in. Don't forget, code is Metro NXP. Ladyada, people get free stuff. What did they get?
Yes, we still have freebies. We've got that new coaster, $99 or more. You get a beautiful PCB coaster with gold print design and rubber bumpers. If you have more than one, perfect. Now you have like a full set. $149 or more. We've got the KB2040 all-in-one dev board that is RP2040 based and Pro Micro Pinout compatible. It's great for keyboards or any other kind of microcontroller projects.
Yeah.
We got free UPS shipping back, and any order over $199 or is it $200? We got UPS back for now.
And if you're not hitting the free tier, that's okay. Our UPS rates are better than they have been in 3 years because we negotiated and they matched the rates we were getting from FedEx. So good news for all of you.
And Circuit Playground Expresses are still being given away. Orders over $299. That will end soon. So we're going to be switching it out with something else. But for now, you can get our all-in-one sewable, wearable, hackable, alligator clippable sensor board that runs code.org, CS Discoveries, MicroPython, CircuitPython, MakeCode, MicroLisp, Arduino.
Yeah, so when someone gets all like, oh, there's the best programming language. Well, we make boards that pretty much runs them all.
I think you even want Rust on this. Yeah. They've got a build for the SAMD21.
All right. We do a bunch of live shows. We've been publishing so much, and so much has been going on. Special thanks to Liz, who hosted the show and tell. We were watching it from this side. You can see a ton of cool projects. Sophie came back to the show and tell.
Yay!
Did a cool repair mod on this like recorder. That's kind of neat. And then Make has a new cosplay episode, so check out. Or they're doing a stream about the new issue, and there's going to be a streaming event, so you can check it out as a cosplay. Make. And I remember when I was at Make, and I was always a little too ahead of what I thought should be on the covers and everything. And I was like, hey, we should do a cosplay thing. And it was like, what's that? So this is fantastic. And also, to be honest, it's kind of a better time to cosplay anyways. It was really hard to do electronics and wearables and all the things that are kind of easy to do now. So I'm looking forward to that issue and seeing the stream. We do Desk of Ladyada every single Sunday. What'd you show this week?
This week I was showing off some of these cool, weird displays. We're going to talk about those more. Round displays, square displays, bar displays. I've been designing a board that uses the ESP32S3, which has RGB TTL display output. And so I showed, what some mistakes I made, how I modified the board to make it work, and then some animation playback using Arduino GFX library. And I also showed, one of the time-consuming tasks of adding new displays is you have to take this init code and put it into the right format, and it's just like a lot of like hand editing. And so Mr. Lady had the idea of like, well, why don't you use ChatGPT for it? And I was like, there's no way that'll work, but I actually did. I gave it a C code, and there's like a code analyzer function now on ChatGPT version 4. So you have to have a paid account. But then I said, hey, take this, rewrite every C function for me, reformat it, and give it to me in this other format. And it did. And I even see like there's some things that didn't work quite well. So it's an
Yeah.
iterative learning process. But it does do a good job now. Now I know how to do it. I've got through like a bunch of displays.
And we have like our narrative that we talk about as well. It's like there's polarization about these tools. Like AI is going to take all our jobs, it's going to kill us all. It's the best thing ever. We're going to have Star Trek Utopia. So we have an editorial section. I'll get into that as we do some other things on the show tonight, where anytime we use any of these tools, we disclose which one we use. We say, here's the time and date. So far, we only use it with our stuff. And a specific example is we'll see our code everywhere in these AI tools, and that's interesting. But we also want to be able to use it, like have it interact with our stuff. So like when I downloaded a data set to look into my data set. So anyways, right tool for right job sometimes. So we're exploring this. You could see how an engineer is using it for some physical hardware, kind of cool stuff. And then we do the Great Search. So the Great Search is when Ladyada helps you find stuff on digikey.com. What did you help people find this week?
This is a good one for retro people. So we had some folks email and say, hey, how do you find replacement capacitors for these old retro devices? The companies that made these capacitors don't exist, or the markings are really confusing and unclear. And I found that DigiKey has a really good tech forum post where they actually go through stuff I didn't know about, how you determine what capacitor it is, so you can like replace any busted capacitors, because after like 10-20 years they start to dry out, especially if they haven't been used for a long time. It's very common to open up an old device and find that the capacitors have been damaged or they're shorted. Tantalums as well. Maybe we'll do tantalums next time. So check out this this video. I actually live show replacing a couple different capacitors. And also I paste the thread where you can go through and you can play a little quiz game where you like look at the image and quickly, like with your newfound knowledge, figure out what kind of capacitor it is, the capacitance, and the voltage code for it.
Okay, JP's back and did a product pick of the week. Take it away, JP. Here's this week's highlight.
It is the Audio BFF. This is for QT Py and Xiao boards, and it gives you both a micro SD card reader and an I2S 3-watt amplifier. So it is perfect for plugging in a small speaker and playing audio files with this just stuck right onto the belly side of a QT Py. There's a little micro SD card there with a bunch of audio samples from the video game Portal.
Hello, and again, welcome to the Aperture Science Computer Aided Enrichment Center. Wait now, and cake will be served immediately.
What I can do is take that SD card out, grab a different SD card with different samples. I'm just going to slide that in, reset the code, and now I have totally different set of sound effects. It is the Audio BFF for QT Py and Xiao.
Okay, and don't forget JP's workshop is tomorrow. On Fridays, you might catch a deep dive with Tim, or it'll be a deep dive with Scott. That's every single Friday at 2 p.m. There's a bunch of news that some of them I'm not going to get to this week. I'm going to probably talk about it next week. Just one mention though. Microsoft is going to stop selling the Kinect, and we have a long history with the Kinect. Google Kinect, Adafruit, we did a bounty for people to hack the Kinect. It ignited an entire industry.
It's so awesome. It's
around using the Kinect for things. It was used in like all sorts of like clinical medical settings for you name it. It was just used for absolutely everything. It was a low cost, amazing, scatter sensor.
We went to that art exhibit down during Christmas. Yeah. There was an art, like an LED art Christmas holiday time exhibit down at the Seaport. And we went down there, and like every other project was like, oh, that's a Kinect. That's a Kinect.
And you have a big impact on something when because the tech sites are writing a postmortem. They're like, there was so many projects that Microsoft helped out with the Kinect. They were threatening to sue us at first. This is a very different Microsoft than it was 10 years ago. They were telling us that if we kept pushing for this to be reverse engineers, we were going to get sued. And so what did we do? We just raised a bounty. So eventually on Science Friday with Ira Flato, the head of whoever is at Microsoft, is like, okay, we're not gonna go after those weirdos in New York. Um, Downside is all the articles completely erased Adafruit's role in it.
That's okay.
Like always, that's fine.
But you know, good. It should be. It should
Yeah.
be like, of course,
And so I kind of there was an interview with Jack White from the White Stripes, and they're like, "How do you feel about your songs being used in anthems?" And he's like, "It's not mine anymore. It's like it's the community's. It's like it's someone else's. It's
Well, you're
it's
gonna
all of
charge
ours."
30,000 British
Yeah.
dollars to sing your song.
Well, I'm just like, sometimes when you make something, if you really want to succeed, you just have to let it go. And we did that. And anyways, I thought it was cool. So the Connect is no longer for sale. And then if you look across our socials, every single day almost, we do PCB of the day. These are from our TikTok. If you're interested in seeing the PCB that we recently redesigned because of chip shortage, you can catch that almost every day. We try to do these Monday through Friday, and fun little vignettes. Vignettes, is that right?
Yeah, vignettes.
Vignettes of some of the work that we do and some of the applications these things have.
I like how like the music is different every day, or like the style and the music is different depending on your mood.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm in
If
an
you-
80s mood
If you
today.
miss MTV, this is for
Yeah.
you. And then mailbag.
We get letters, we get tweets, and we get emails.
Okay, this is a very special mailbag. Normally, the mailbag is an email to us, or sometimes a physical letter. Sometimes it's something else. This week, though, Joey is doing manufacturing, and this is a scene from the Sensor Watch Light Manufacturing at Make Augusta. And Joey says, Adafruit, this is made in Augusta factory footage, right down to the thumbs up when tests pass. Everything I learned about making a tester, I learned from y'all. So we did something super weird. We show how we test electronics. No one does that. And that's kind of the secret dark art of electronics. So Joey posted up a video. I wanted to play this. It's about a minute and a half, and it's how they're making electronics here in the United States using the things that we shared and Joey implemented.
The first thing we do is we get solder paste onto the PCB. Here we use a solder paste printer, and it uses a squeegee to squeeze paste through a stencil onto the board. How neat is that? And then we take the board with the solder paste on it and we put it in the machine. And we hit the go button. I'm taking my depanelizing clippers and I put them right in there and then clipping all the edge rails. These are nice too because they're the exact right width for these mouse bites. So it gives you a nice clean clip. Sensor Watch Tester. Press red button to test a board. And we're good.
Okay, like I said, this show is packed this week. Retro this week. So we have a backlog of retro hardware. So we have like a mini Adafruit retro hardware museum. We have a big collection of clackety keyboards. So this one I've been meaning to post for a while. This is a clackety clacky keyboard from Bloomberg. And as far as I can tell, this is the only mechanical clacky keyboard. I like a cancel button. That's in a museum, and
Hmm.
this one happens to be. And we have the same one. Coincidence. Didn't know this until I did some fact checking and some more research. But this one's in the Smithsonian. This is Bill Gross's Bloomberg keyboard.
No.
And who's Bill Gross? Well, he has a bunch of money and he donated to the museum, so I think that's why they're putting it in.
Yeah,
No, really. So,
that's true.
no, he did. Bill Gross used this Bloomberg keyboard in his work at Pacific Investment Management during the 1990s and 2000. The Bloomberg keyboard is similar to other QWERTY keyboards in its layout, but replaces many of the generic functions with finance-specific keys. So you can see it here. There's like Gov button and cancel button, and like it has like a microphone and headphones. I think I can mod this to turn it into like an MP3 player. There's some more things.
Yeah, the speakers are definitely interesting.
Yeah. And if you want to see more information, it was made by Maxi Switch Inc., Tucson, Arizona. Maxi Sound keyboard.
I wonder if it was like, they made the Maxi Sound and then Bloomberg was like, okay, I want you to make a custom
Yeah.
version that like you slap our logo on and like some of the keys are green.
Yeah. And
Look
so
at that return. It's like when you hit that return, you're like, I'm buying or I'm selling.
there goes a mortgage, Sorry, everybody. So it's in the Museum of Natural History, permanent museum. You can check that out. So that is retro for the week this week. Python on hardware. This week is a big milestone week. Congratulations, the entire community, everyone who works on the newsletter, and most of all, congratulations, Anne, who heads up the newsletter. I used to do it and took it over. We are now up to 250 Python on microcontroller newsletter editions. You can see it every single week. It covers everything Python on hardware. It doesn't have to be CircuitPython. It's MicroPython. It's regular old Python.
I'll just like throw like language stuff in there, like
Yeah.
Lisp or
Yeah, Python in Excel is a thing. There's a lot of Python in our lives. When I was doing an article about open hardware certifications, lots of Python happened to be used for the way I was getting data out. So you can check out all this stuff. There's events that are going on. It's projects that the community's up to. If you want to see what we think is the big trend that's going on in hardware scripting languages on microcontrollers, there is no better resource. So big ups to Anne. It's a lot of work every single week. Doesn't cost anything. There's no ads. We have a completely separate site called Adafruit Daily that you can go to, and separate because we don't want your customer information mixed up with newsletter stuff, because people should sign in to a site to buy stuff, and there should be another place for newsletters and more, and you shouldn't get spammed. But part two of our Python on hardware this week is some CircuitPython news. We have, I think, one of the bigger things that's going to change microcontrollers for makers, which is being able to have all sorts of shapes and easy ways to get stuff on display. So, Ladyada, you got a demo this week.
Yes.
What is going on? Because we've been publishing round displays, square displays, bar displays.
What's going on?
What's going on with all these displays, and why is this such a big deal?
Okay.
And why does this little espressive entity have a hat? What's going on?
I know he's friendly.
All right.
She's friendly. I don't know if it's here. It's friendly. Okay, so if you go to the overhead, I have a demo, and this is actually GIF.io. So this is a GIF that is being drawn from the memory inside this one board fell ESP32 S3 board, and this is the S3 has a special peripheral that allows it to drive what are called like dot clock or RGB TTL displays. This display is 720 by 720 pixels. It has capacitive touch as well, although we don't have that working just yet. We're gonna do that next. This is the capacitive touch chip, and basically when you're using displays like the ILI 9341 or ST7781, ST7789, those displays don't get any bigger than 320 by 240. But what if you want to drive like big displays or round displays or bar displays? Those tend to use this 40-pin RGB TTL interface. And not a lot of microcontrollers support them because you need a lot of memory. You have to buffer the entire image. And it's like, getting into the 2 megabytes of video RAM required. But the ESP32 S3 this one in particular has 8 MB of PS RAM, which is plenty of PS RAM to have it drive this display. Now you're not going to get like, you're not going to be able to play like full speed video, and it uses almost all the pins. So it's definitely for, if you have a project that's very display focused and you want to drive these large images, large image displays. It's not good for, okay, I want to have I2S also, and I also want to have the SD card, and I want this display, and I want tons of sensors. Like there is a limitation, but this is one of the few microcontrollers out there that can even drive these displays. So making it work with CircuitPython will make it really, really easy, because usually it's quite hard to wire these up and configure them and initialize them. So we're going to have example code for all of them. This is a square display, but as I mentioned, and you'll see later in the show, we have round, bar, half round displays, 7 inches, high density 3 inches. We have this gigantic round one that's like 4-inch diagonal, so it's like the size of a dinner plate. It's very interesting stuff, because I've had these displays for a while. Actually, I had this in my bin for a couple years, waiting until there was a way for me to drive them.
Okay. And so stay tuned to pretty much everywhere we publish, because it's happening fast. Every day we're making more progress across all these different displays. We have cool new ideas. We have round displays that can do stuff with Wi-Fi. So that's pretty much unlocks everything.
It's going to be neat.
Yeah. And that is our Python on hardware news for this week. Don't forget, once again, sign up for the newsletter, delivered every single week. If you see Anne online, say good work, Anne. Awesome. 250.
It's a lot.
Yeah. All right. It's time to talk about some open source hardware before we go into our Learn Guides. We are an open source hardware company. I had published an article. It was the changing nature of open source hardware. Basically, the article was about how there's companies that were known for doing open source hardware, and they seem to be retreating from it, from scrubbing their website with open source to one requiring an NDA for the hardware, but calling it open source. And then there was Prusa, the 3D printing company, that said, we're getting cloned, open source is getting eroded, and OSHWA, they should look into this. So I got an interview with Joseph Prusa and did a bunch of research. Article made the rounds. There's a podcast, pretty well-known podcast that might have me on it, but I want to have the people that are experts on it. So that led me to do some research. So the next article just came out. This one is, and I'll just go to the, let's go to the thing. Get me out here. So this is 3D printing, open source, certifying hardware, OSHWA API China, a way ahead. So I got a quote from OSHWA. They said they're looking into it on their own timeline. They're going to be talking to Chinese makers and more. There's a summit coming up, so maybe in 2024 we'll hear about that. They are a nonprofit, so they do post minute meetings, and maybe some of the updates will appear there. I will check in down the road and see how they're doing. This is obviously something very interesting to everyone who does open source. The interesting thing is the tension or debate is China is ripping off all the open source 3D printers and selling them and not providing, anything back. But the data says something different. So when you go to the OSHWA, sorry, that's the API. When you go to the OSHWA site for certification, you can just search. And if you type China, there's 8 projects, and all of them are essentially
and some of these are really
3D printers.
That one, the bottom one is February 23.
So the Elgo, the CR, the Ender, these are all really well-known 3D printers. So it doesn't look like China's just ripping off designs and selling them as closed source commercial things. It looks like they're participating in open source hardware. And I said the most notable one I remember was Naomi got Creality to publish the source code. And she got and watched her video about how she was talking to them and what was important and how intellectual property is being used in really thoughtful, good ways. So I was like, well, let me really dig into the data here. So the API downloaded the JSON file, and this is when we're going to when you get a key. This is when we're going to pop into like slightly controversial land. I used OpenAI's code tool. And I uploaded the JSON file, and then I started asking it questions, which was kind of cool. You can press show your work and all that stuff, and it'll do Python for you. And it did some checking. Looks like it was spot on with the things that I was looking up. And I said, hey, can you analyze this? And it's like, sure, let's analyze this. Here's all the entries, here's all the things. And the first question I asked is, what are the top 10 countries that certify, and how many entries are there for each one? United States of America 1500, Germany 138, Croatia 109, Bulgaria 95, United Kingdom 48, India 47, Spain 36, Mexico 32, Canada 30, Sweden 21. That was interesting. Then it said, well, what are the categories? I want to know what are the top categories. A little bit of a surprise. I didn't think it was going to be this. Number one, electronics, knew that one, but 3D printing was number two, with IoT being a close second, and then education and science after that. And this is just me asking questions to the data source. Kind of cool. Normally, I would try to stumble through some Python and then ultimately ask Lemore, but I was able to do this. And then I said, oh, for the 175 entries related to printer 3D, what are the top 10 countries they come from? United States has 122 entries, and China has 8. So the top two countries that certify open source hardware is US and China. And then I'm like, oh, I wonder what software license everyone's using. So out of the 2,407 entries, 1,348 use the MIT license, which makes sense. I recall folks trying to do research on open source hardware asking me these questions, and I'm like, well, like, I don't know, there's like an API you can probably ask around and do stuff. This is like a PhD in a box almost. And then I'm just like, ooh, let me try to be funny. And I said, okay, for the certification dates of the top 10 responsible parties who certify hardware, what's the most popular day of the week? It's Friday, with 331 issued on that day.
Last thing to do before the weekend.
Yeah. And to be fair, that's when someone approves them. It's not when they get submitted.
Yeah, okay.
And then for the certification dates, what's the most popular month? It's May, which is usually right after the summit. So people go to the open hardware summit.
Yeah.
And they go back and I'm like, I'm going to certify myself. And then lastly, look at this chart. You can see, I think this is probably the most interesting chart, which I believe and hope Oshawa will look into, which is, okay, Lulzbot, they were a US 3D printing company.
These are the top 10
These are the top 10 certifiers.
certifiers.
And it's like, Lulzbot, that's a 3D printing company. What happened after 2020? Because they didn't certify any hardware after that.
They were on a good clip there.
Yeah, and then Olemex, they're still doing stuff, kind of slowed down in 2021. They have a couple recently. And then, just straight up, it looks like SparkFun had some early certifications. We did a bunch, they did a bunch, we did a bunch, they did a bunch, we did a bunch. And it is, neck and neck, which is great. We have 600, they have slightly less than that. And then there's kind of a longer tail for the rest of the companies. That's healthy. And this is like all stuff that you can do. And for us, and I'll just go back to the original piece here, or the first thing is, so anytime we use AI tools, we'll disclose it. We'll say what version we're using. You can check our editorial standards, but you can also look at, I linked, here's a chart of the certifications and which countries there are. But I also clicked, show your work, little chatbot, and you can see it imported pandas. It went through this. It figured out the certification date for us, and it did like a linear chart of how soon we would get to 1,000 certifications. So I kind of look at this as like an advanced spell check. It didn't do my work for me. It was the work that I was doing, and I published it and I disclosed it. And I think this is a good way to use these tools. We'll continue to use them this way. We've told our team, if you find these tools useful, just state what you're using and the models, or the link to what it's coming from. And generally speaking, this is all data that's available out there, and we only use it on our data. But I understand that there's folks that have strong opinions about this. So that is the latest update. I might do an article later, we'll see. But the Oshawa API is awesome for people that are into open source hardware, trends, where it's being made, certified, and what's important or not. Next up. So speaking of, we got a bunch of open source hardware.
Yes,
We
guides.
have a lot of guides. What's on the big board this week, Ladyada?
This week we've got a guide from Pete Warden on reading QR codes with the Teeny Code Reader. It's a new product that's being announced this or next week. It's a little sensor that has a camera and an I2C interface, and you can use it to read QR codes over I2C, which is kind of neat. And it uses machine learning, TensorFlow like for microcontrollers. And then, of course, knowing Pedro and Phil B had this Talking D20 project. They built it many years ago with like a trinket and Arduino, and it was, wonderful and everything. But it's much, much easier to build nowadays with a prop maker Feather because the accelerometer, the speaker, the data storage for the WAV files and all the playback stuff is all handled internally, as well as the battery charging and discharging and monitoring is all handled by a single board. So there's like minimal amount of coding that you need to do this. It's like a lot simpler and a lot smaller, and the build is really nice and uses like magnets to close together. So if it sounds familiar, it's like, yes, we did do this project earlier as an Arduino, but now it's been remade in CircuitPython and it's awesome. And we have a little video later. Melissa went through and has updated the Adafruit Funhouse and other Home Assistant guides. Apparently there's some change in the Home Assistant API. So now our stuff continues to work. She also published a major guide that takes what was originally a Raspberry Pi message board and ported it to the Matrix Portal S3. And she was like, yeah, you can pretty much have a complicated message board project with animations and background graphics and alpha blending, all done in CircuitPython. So you don't need to get a single board computer. You can just use a Matrix Portal S3. And another rebuild that we did, Liz Clark remade the Talking Adabot clock. This is Phil and I's one of our favorite projects that we did. The original project used a wave shield and a data logger shield and Arduino, and it was very complicated.
Complicated.
It was a complicated build. I mean, at the time it was, easier than not using Arduino. But now, again, with the prop maker, it's an all-in-one project, like almost no soldering required. And the audio quality is really good because it uses a digital I2S amplifier. And you can store all the different WAV files in any voice. And it's a fun clock just to make a talking clock. But I also thought it would be great for accessibility. It's a simple thing. You press the button, it speaks the time. You can, of course, change the language or the voice. Also might be good for kids or other people who can't read a clock. So, what time is it? You just press the button and it tells you. If you can't read digital or analog clocks, this will do the job. And then I think, do you want to look real fast if there's any other guides? I don't think so. Yeah, a couple updates. And then Metro S3 guide went live as well. But also we added Whippersnapper, Tithe added Whippersnapper support for these, the BME 680, 388, and LPS 3. So we've been like cranking through those as well. We'll have a Whippersnapper update, I think, next week.
And here's a quick little 1-minute video about the talking clock. Liz.
Not sure what time it is? Never quite got the hang of reading an analog clock?
The time is 9:00 a.m.
Ask Adabot by building this talking clock project. Inside is an RP2040 prop maker Feather running CircuitPython code. The code uses a DS3231 real-time clock breakout connected over I2C. Whenever you press the button on the top of Adabot's head, he'll announce the current time for you through the speaker. If this project sounds familiar, that's because it's a remake of the fantastic Wave Shield talking clock by Phil B. With the release of the RP2040 prop maker Feather, it felt like a great time to revisit this idea. Adabot's Head is a remix of, Adabot's Head from the Adabot Toy Robot Friend project.
The time is 1:44 p.m.
To accommodate the clock electronics, Adabot's Head was lengthened and a few mounting holes were added. To see how you can build your own friendly talking robot clock, check out the Learn Guide at learn.adafruit.com.
Time for some factory footage. And that's factory footage. Let's do some 3D printing. We're going to play these back to back. This is the now famous electronic talking D20 video, and then a speed up with some toes that poke out of Crocs. It's the only show that does this.
You can roll your own D20 and talking D20 with 3D printing and CircuitPython. This is a remake of our classic Arduino project that we respun as a much easier build using the Adafruit RP2040 prop maker feather. The two halves are 3D printed and house the all-in-one dev board along with a mini speaker, slide switch, and rechargeable battery. The built-in accelerometer detects when it's been rolled and plays an audio file of the number it's landed on.
Behold, a 2. You roll a 4.
The RP2040 prop maker feather is secured to one half of the D20 and the two snap fit together with neodymium magnets.
Behold, a 4. Good day, sir.
Philip Burgess, aka Paint Your Dragon, ported his original Arduino code to CircuitPython. The face vectors have been remapped to fit the new orientation and features freefall detection using the LIS3DH accelerometer. To learn how to build your own, check out the guide at learn.adafruit.com. The USB-C port is accessible when the D20 is open. Phil B included a nifty feature that tells you when the battery is low so you know when it's time to recharge.
Battery is about to die.
You can 3D print the halves yourself or have a 3D printing service make them for you. The electronics are mounted to one half, so we opted to include a spot for adding a counterweight to balance out the die. We had a lot of fun working on this and hope it inspires folks to give this unique project a roll.
Ion MPI brought to you by DigiKey and Adafruit. This week it is TE Ladyada. What is Ion MPI this week?
This week's Ion MPI is the TE Limbas LTE GNSS cellular modem. Looks like this little doohickey. This is a handy little device that you can use to add cellular data connectivity and geolocation to a single board computer, or it's like a desktop computer, anything that has a USB port. Lembas, as you will know because you're a fantasy fan, is the elvish waybread that you only need to have a little bite to fill your stomach, and is used by the hobbits as they travel through the forest. And so this is like Lembas. This cellular modem will help you find your way because it's a geolocation device. And it's also very filling. Okay, so what is this? It's a USB modem. And if folks remember old style modems that would connect through your RS-232 port on your computer or your serial port and would tie into the phone line, and then you could use it to dial up and get internet access. This is just like that, but there's no phone line. It uses a cellular modem inside, and the access to the data comes through USB. So you just plug into a USB port and it shows up as a serial device that then your operating system dials through, and you need to have a SIM card. So you need to have a SIM card with data access. It does come with one that you can activate. And then you can get LTE speeds, which are actually pretty fast. And this is designed specifically for use with single board computers like the Raspberry Pi, the Odroid, and the Asus Tinker, and NVIDIA Jetson Nano. Those are like four of the very popular single board computers, but you can use kind of anything with Debian or Ubuntu. And of course, it also does work with Mac or Windows or like non-Raspbian style Linux development systems. So we opened one up, and inside is a Quectel EC25. And this is the cellular and GNSS module. So, we've covered Quectel before. They're experts at this. They make the modules, they get them certified so that they're legit to use on the network, and they're FCC and PTCRB and all that good stuff. Don't worry about the EMI. This is not going to be valid very soon. This is the LTE Cat4 modem. So, you can get a fairly good data transfer up to 150 megabits per second down, 50 megabits up. So maybe not for like streaming a lot of video, but definitely good enough for data transfer, IoT projects, sending images back and forth, data chunks. And, if you have, general purpose internet access that you need for your device, you're used to Wi-Fi or Ethernet, you can now unplug and go anywhere without having to connect a hat or solder anything up to your Raspberry Pi. There's a couple different modules in this family. The reason you might want to know the module is because you want to use the AT command set directly. You can download it from the Quectel website. Note that this is the AFXD data only version. It just might be handy. And this does come with a GNSS inside. So GPS, GLONASS, Baidu, Galileo, and QZSS. Those are the different constellations available for tracking location around the world using the GPS satellite system. And even though again this is marketed towards single board computers, absolutely great for that. It'll also work with general purpose Windows, Linux, or Mac. On the other side of the module, when you open it up, there is, you see the USB-C connector on the right, and then there's this power supply chip. There is a SIM card. It comes with a SIM card that you can activate. It's data only, and of course you'll have to pay because it's, it's a monthly subscription service for a SIM card. While the SIM card does come with it, it is removable. It's just a micro SD, micro SIM. And so if you want to use your own SIM, or you're going abroad or whatever, and you want to use a different SIM card or like a SIM swapping system, you can just open it up. Once you open it, the warranty is void, but like I'm a hacker, so I like to know, is it possible to change it? It's not an eSIM, it's just a removable one. And what's interesting is in the top right there, that chip, the TE chip is, the TI chip is a USB hub. And that's interesting because inside is actually 2 USB devices. We'll get to that in a moment. So on the front, there's some fun design decisions that they made. So I'd like to point them up. Once the activity LEDs make up a TE logo, and it looks like really cool. There's little light pipes that go through. So, the activity and the connectivity and power comes through these light pipes that, it's like, oh, there's like a logo, but it's actually not. It's an indicator. Second, if you go back one, this you can kind of see it's a little shiny. It's conformally coated, which is nice. It's not waterproof or even weatherproof, but if you have to have it outside and there's some humidity, you don't have to worry about it oxidizing as quickly. I did notice a nice conformal coat, so they spent a little bit extra effort to make sure that this board is protected for when you use it, say for digital signage that might have some exposure to the elements. Okay, and then get down when we did this one. So when you plug it in, of course you can use it on your Raspberry Pi, but I thought it'd be more informative to have it plugged in on my Windows computer. It does come up with 3 ports. There's the AT port, which is where you can send AT command sets if you're used to cellular modems, or pretty much any modem that use AT commands to send and receive data. So if you want to do direct control of the module, you can do it that way. The NMEA port is, as you expect, the GPS module, and that kind of pipes out NMEA sentences. And then the DM port is for data transfer. I think that's for the high-speed data transfer. When you're trying to get that 150 megabits per second, you wouldn't necessarily use the AT command port. The other interesting thing that they did is, as I mentioned, that there is a USB hub chip in there. So that USB hub chip is used to allow you to connect to both the cellular module modem, which gives you those 3 COM ports, and there's separately a USB key inside. It's like a disk storage. And this actually solves a very annoying problem of, oh, wow, I want to put my device on the internet, but I can't put my device on the internet because the drivers require me to download them from the internet. So how do I get them? If you remember that from like Wi-Fi modules, like before the drivers came with every operating system. But for cellular modules, especially for Raspberry Pi, the instructions for how to set them up are not built in. So this way, instead of you having to type in all these commands and and like memorize them, the SD card, the USB key that comes inside the module as part of that like second hub connected USB key has the code and instructions and shell scripts for you to install the modem directly on an ARM chip like, NVIDIA, Odroid, or Raspberry Pi. So it's like you pop it in and you're like, it mounts automatically. You just run install te-install.sh and it does everything for you. And you're like ready to go in under 2 minutes. Very fast. As mentioned, there is a built-in SIM card. You can provision a SIM by going to their SIM provider. And then, of course, here's the instructions for that USB modem. Again, I was like, what do you mean it just auto mounts? And then I realized, oh, it's a USB key inside. So that's kind of nice. And great for asset tracking, especially because it's got both cellular and it can drop down to GPRS or GSM, but it has Category 4 LTE, which is, pretty much has almost complete coverage in the United States. The GPS is really good quality, so you can use that to locate devices and send their location over cellular. Or you can use it if you're like, let's say you have a bunch of like not trucks, things are moving, but machines that you're tracking, and you want them to report who they are. Sometimes it's like they don't necessarily go out with the firmware that tells them, hey, this is your unique identifier. You can use a location instead. So for example, that you have a client, in Augusta, Georgia. You don't necessarily know, like if they moved around, the GNSS will tell you, hey, this is where your client is located. You can use that to identify the data instead of just relying on like the EMI or like a unique username or password. So I think useful for a lot of different products where you don't want to have to rely on Wi-Fi access because Wi-Fi passwords change all the time.
Okay, and it is in stock at DigiKey.
That's right. You can actually get them, which is pretty sweet. And the price is, less expensive than if you try to like roll your own using the modules. So you get the SIM, you get the casing, you get the USB key storage, USB hub, power supply, everything's ready to go in this like adorable little case.
Good. Okay. And then we're going to play this video and then we'll see you on the other side for new products.
Get reliable speeds with TE Connectivity's Lembus LTE GNSS USB modem, ran on an LTE Cat4 network with GPS tracking capabilities. From consumer products, industrial automation, engineering education, and maker projects, the Lembus LTE GNSS modem prioritizes your next big IoT project. The Lembus is designed for use on a wide array of single-board computers, utilizing ARM chipsets and Linux OS. The Lembus also includes plug-and-play operations, making LTE and GPS connections ready after plugging in and a single command on terminal for easy installation. The Lembus has a built-in Pod Group SIM card which can be activated using the Pod Group's website, enabling connection to the AT&T network, getting data connection subscription you can rely on. The device also functions as a portable USB drive, allowing for extra storage capabilities and convenient installation. Get a wide array of project design choices with flexible connection options and small device footprint capabilities, giving you the freedom of placement without obstructing adjacent USB ports. TE's Lembus LTE GNSS modem is your convenient all-in-one package for your next big IoT project. The only limit is your imagination. It's ready to connect your world.
Hi,
Don't forget the code is Metro NXP. We're gonna roll right in.
New.
Okay, these are our coming soon screens.
Yes. So all these cool screens that we've been showing off, squares and rounds and high density and capacitive touch. People are like, when can I set up? When can I get them? Well, we're gonna have them in the shop. So we just wanted to get that ready since there's quite a few.
Yep.
So they're being photographed and there's little placeholders in the store. So if you
Yeah,
like
sign up.
them,
They'll go
sign up.
fast. Yeah.
And you'll get notified when we do get them in stock. And then we'll of course have the driver board as well.
Next up.
Next up, we've got the tiny code reader. This is from Pete Warden. We have a guide that goes with it. Thankfully, he wrote it for the learning system. And this is a very simple sensor. I mean, simple, it's complicated, but it seems simple. It has an RP2040 on the back and a camera module on the front, and then a JST SH connector that can be used with quick or stemma boards. And what it does is, if you go to the last photo, when it sees a QR code, it will automatically read it and will give you back that data over I2C. And it's very fast and very good and a lot less expensive than most QR readers because it has a general purpose microcontroller programmed with TensorFlow Lite for microcontrollers that does the image recognition. So I think I'm going to skip doing a demo because it's very similar.
There is a video. You want to play the video?
Oh, yeah.
Let's do the video.
Nice live demo.
Yeah.
All right, so check it out. Really good pricing. I think it's like $7 for the sensor that does a lot. And secretly you could probably hack it to do some other stuff too.
Yep.
So check out TensorFlow Lite for microcontrollers and a lot of other Pete Warden's smart sensor technology. Next up, this is something that we're using for internal hacking, but I thought I would make a dev board for it so other people could hack with it. It's a piezo driver using the PAM8904. This is a chip that's specifically designed for driving piezo discs. And what's interesting is that it seems like it's an audio amplifier that can go up to 300 kilohertz, which is not something you can do with, maybe it's 100 kilohertz. I can't remember, but it's like more than 20 kilohertz of piezo discs. So it's good for ultrasonic and like other like non-audio based piezo driving needs. Sometimes you have to like vibrate something or you want to like bounce ultrasonic waves off of something. A piezo will do that, whereas a speaker will be too slow. So this is a driver that takes in 3 to 5 volts or 2.5 to 3 to 5 volts. And it will use 2 internal switch cap converters to give you up to 3 times gain on the voltage. And then it uses differential output. So if you have 3.3 volts in and you have 3.3 times gain, it'll give you 10 volts output. And then differentially, because it's like plus or minus, you'll get 20 volts across the piezo. So much stronger drives, especially we needed this for doing ultrasonic experimentation where you can't just drive it from my controller pan and get, 3 volts, 20 milliamps output. You want something much stronger. There's a little gain setting at the top. Both are off. It's, if both are set to off, then the sensor's in sleep mode or the driver's in sleep mode. 1 gain, 2 gain, both to the right is 3 gain. Only thing to watch out for is don't set it to 3 gain if you're using 4 volts or higher because the output really doesn't want to be more than 10 volts peak to peak. And while I wish they wouldn't let you purposefully destroy the sensor, and you're not going to destroy it instantly, it's not good for the sensor to be strained. So if you're at 5 volts, keep it to 1 or 2 gains so you don't go above 10 volts. All right.
And then the star of the show tonight, like you, lady, our customers, our community, the entire Adafruit staff, and more is.
Yay! It's the NXP DigiKey Adafruit collab that we started in late 2019. Finally here in the shop, we've got a Metro shaped board with the IMX RT1011. We have an existing board that's very similar that's Wi-Fi. This one has micro SD, so it's very affordable. So it's under $20, and you get a 500 megahertz IMX NXP processor. This is a Cortex M7. This is like an incredibly powerful chip.
Beast.
And it's less expensive than many AVR 8-bit microcontroller boards.
I like the
So,
silkscreen design.
yeah, the silk screen's very beautiful. Thanks to Phil B for it. It's got a micro SD card slot, so you can use that for data storage or retrieval. USB Type-C, it has native USB. You can power it from a DC jack. Again, this very powerful 500 megahertz processor with 128 kilobytes of RAM. And for storage, both disk storage, internal disk storage, and firmware storage, 8 megabytes of QSPI flash. So it's very speedy. So great for data logging, or if you want to stream data off of the micro SD and process it very quickly, because we don't have anything faster than the Cortex M7 for a microcontroller. A lot of accessories on it as well, and not just you've got all of the Arduino compatible headers, so you can use shields with it. STEMMA QT port as well. NeoPixel built in, that micro SD card on-off switch. A JTAG SWD port, so if you want to do step debugging, you can connect this up to your J-Link and use it with MCU Expresso, which is NXP's IDE. You can do step debugging with their programming system. I will mention though, even though it is Arduino shaped, it does not actually run the Arduino IDE. Instead, we have CircuitPython support, which I think is great because you can get up and running really fast. And we support I2S and the SD card reading and digital in-out, PWM, analog, all the stuff you expect. Or you can use NXP's IDE, which of course is going to be the most powerful. And they've got IDE with tech support and all of the ARM Cortex SimSys core required to use all the peripherals on the M7. So you want to get started really quickly, go with CircuitPython. You want like power and control over every register and every byte and all the caches, use NXP's tools. But either way, this is the partnership that we're doing because we wanted to show people that even though this is a 500 megahertz processor, we can make it as easy to use as an 8-bit microcontroller.
All right, and somewhat collectible board too. I think this might be the first circuit board with the new DigiKey logo.
Yes.
And that is new products for the week this week. All right, everybody, there's some questions lined up. We're going to get to those. While we're getting to those and lining them up, we're going to play some Top Secret. And then we'll see you on the other side. Don't forget the code is Metro NXP. And then we're going to bounce because we're right at the line. So let's do some Top Secret. Ladyada, what is this?
This is me testing out the MJPEG player available in the Monero Nation Arduino GFX library. This is a 2.1 inch round TFT display, and you have it showing this cool animation.
Yeah, I'll be your Samantha Carter if you be my Tilk.
I don't know what that means, but that sounds romantic.
There was a good episode where they make a very small Stargate.
Yeah.
And this could be a pocket Stargate.
Ooh, how cool.
I don't know what you'd transport to another planet, but it wouldn't be all of you.
All my Arduino code.
Yeah.
So this is being driven by an ESP32S3 and that's a dial.
Nice dial.
And this is a parallel TFT. So this is 18-bit color. Sorry, it's an 8-bit color display being driven with 16-bit color. And then the MJPEGs are stored on this SPI micro SD card. So it's looking really fun and great. And this is perfect for like, I want simple animations playing. You don't want to have like a full Linux computer. MJPEGs look pretty good.
And for pockets. Ladyada, what is this?
This is me playing an MJPEG on one of these bar displays. So I've got these displays. I love this shape. We've got the round and the square, but these bar displays are so cute
good
too.
For cyberdecks.
Cyberdecking, or something that goes in your tower and your 5 1/4 or 3.5 inch floppy drive. So I'm playing an MJPEG animation off of a micro SD card. This is wired up to my ESP32S3. And I'm seeing a couple things. Well, first it just crashed, so let me reset it. That's part of the fun of picking up hardware. Is there's a little bit of a tearing effect. You can see like these lines that cut through here and there. That's because I'm using the code that I'm using only has one single buffer, and so when it draws the JPEG, it decodes it onto the main frame that's also being displayed, and so you're going to get as the animation goes, you're going to see this flickering effect. double buffering will help there. I also think there's a little bit of destabilization in the V-Sync and H-Sync pulses. So I'm going to talk to the factory and see if they have any other suggestions for clock, rate, H-Sync pulse, or back or front porch settings. But it's kind of cute demo. Bing, beep, 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 beep. Sushi time.
All right, Ladyada, where's that thing that time that you put that thing?
The zip, 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 zip. Here it is. It's a floppy disk image on this square
Fits in a
display.
floppy disk
And it fits
drive,
in a floppy
yeah.
drive. So this is a 720 by 720 square display, and it does have a touch screen on it, so you can draw. I'm just doing dots, but of course you can have it draw lines and stuff. And it happens to be like almost exactly the same size as a floppy disk, so it's kind of fun. Somebody had the idea of like, oh, you could have like a smart floppy.
It'll show what's being
something,
emulated or something.
Yeah,
It's
who
kind of
knows?
cool.
And then this is being driven by an ESP32 S3, which, fun fact for people who are watching this video all the way to the end, CircuitPython support is coming for these displays real soon now. Jepler just got the first demo working. But this demo is in Arduino, and it's just drawing a JPEG that is being stored on this SD card onto the 720 by 720 square display. Coming soon.
Okay, we're gonna play some Round Doom.
Pew, pew.
Round Doom. Lots of neat stuff. We got our Hackers 4K DVD, so of course we had to do a screen, and then we're playing around with some keyboard ideas with these round displays. We're like, oh, maybe we'll have a round display with a Keep 2040, and then of course afterwards we're like, well, someone's going to be like, can you run Doom or not? And we're calling it Room. I think Topbot said that. And that's our top secret for the week. There's a lot. There's even more than I just get to. Let's do the questions and then bounce Rama. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Lady, you're going to speed round these. I'll read them off. Here we go. For the this board.
Yes.
3.3 volts.
Yes, it's a 3-volt microcontroller.
Okay.
So you'll use that for analog inputs, digital inputs, and outputs. But the board itself has a 5-volt power supply.
Okie dokie. Next up, is the M7 as powerful as a Pi, or is there any other ADA boards that could replace a Pi?
It is the closest to a Pi. Like a Pi Zero is 700 megahertz, a 7 processor, I think. This is an M4, an M7, which is not, the processor itself isn't as powerful, but it's getting closer to it. I mean, you probably could run a very minimal version of Linux on this chip if somebody ported Linux to this chip.
Is the Metro IMX capable of USB host?
I believe it is. All the IMX series can do USB host. However, you would lose the main USB interface. And so I didn't set it up because I personally feel like for CircuitPython or Arduino, whatever usage, you don't want to lose your main port because otherwise it's very hard to upload new code. So you would have to use the SWD interface to do that. It's kind of for advanced uses.
When will the Limbus drivers be available for microcontrollers with USB host?
I mean, I think it's just CDC, so it might actually work right now. Like you plug it in, it might appear as an interface, but USB host is not going to be very fast. And honestly, I would recommend just not going through USB. I'd get a cellular module and just use a hardware UART instead of going through like 3 layers of interpretation.
Next one, I can answer this one. Is there a selection matrix for boards where you can filter by GPIO account, logic voltage? PWM frequency could be really useful. Ask Make Magazine, and I'll tell you why. Because if we did a board matrix guide, it would just have our boards. Make covers all of them, and they work with DigiKey, and they have a board guide, and they're very receptive to these type of suggestions. And not only would you see Adafruit boards, but you would get everyone else's board.
Right.
Too, and we're pretty confident and comfortable with having our stuff compared, because we're not going to make every board for every reason. We might not have something that fits your exact needs. That's okay. There might be someone else, and it'd be nice to have one resource that's maintained. I think that's a editorial mission for Make to kind of have all these in one spot, and they do a board guide every year. So please, 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 ask Make Magazine because I think they'll do it. Any plans to make a Pi 4 level Ada board?
Not going to compete with a Raspberry Pi 4, and you can get Raspberry Pi 4s. We actually had a bunch in stock today.
Yep.
For many, many hours, so there's no need. I think that they do a great job, and I don't really want to design single board Linux computers.
Okay. Let's see. Since you recently covered the Octal PSF RAM issue, does it mean the recent Metro ESP32 S3 will only work in QSPI mode?
I'm going to revise the board to have it work with the Octal PS RAM. So only a couple got sent out, and we'll probably just replace those.
For the board guide, if it's on GitHub or other, I'd be happy to contribute. That's another
Make.
That's another thing. So I'd ask Make if they would consider putting the board guide on GitHub because they'd get more contributions that way, and it could be like a yearly community thing. I think you'd have to make sure that like one company doesn't just stuff all their boards in. Every single year we get asked to contribute to their board guide, and it's usually a spreadsheet, and we put in all the information. My opinion, it would be nice to have it out in the open where it just gets updated every year, because then you'd have it forever. And I think
that's it.
Yeah, I think that is everything.
We speed rounded it.
Oh, how do you deal with outbound shipping during disaster like hurricane? So usually what we do is we inform the customers if there's a place that we know that has a shipping outage. We also have it in our terms of service. We're like, hey, there's going to be natural disasters sometimes.
I mean, there's winter.
Yeah, we were stuck with winter every year usually. But usually it's just notifying customers if they're in an area that their shipments may be delayed. Usually they're trying to take care of business and themselves and family and not worried about their packages. But so far with all the natural disasters each year, we've managed to get everybody their goods. And if they don't make it, we do refunds or replacements because that is how we roll. I think that is our show for tonight. Yeah, I just got through all these. Thank you very much, everyone. This has been an Adafruit production. Don't forget the code is Metro NXP. We will see everybody next week. Here is your moment of Zener. We got this entire show done. This is a monster show. Bye, everybody.
Bye.